Hello, I'm Dan.
I'm Simon. Sorry, I got a mouthful of apple.
Brilliant. And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article and we talk about what we find. Simon, aside from your apple, what are we talking about this week?
Hang on, let me just take another bite, just in preparation for the article. Hang on.
Lovely.
This week, Dan, we're talking about... I actually can't pronounce that with a mouthful of apple. Tenma Shubuya, a Japanese actor, classical dancer, and cultural exchange activist.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is, again, alarmingly highbrow for the start of this particular podcast.
We've got to do something about this. We really have got
We really
to
do.
put our foot down and insist that the quality... stomp that quality right back down.
Well, I think we should let the readers know that despite starting on such lofty heights and sunny uplands for the podcast, we will do our very best to drag it down into the gutter as the podcast goes on.
Well, let's try and power through the actual content so we can get back to our regular scheduled non-content programming.
Yes.
Sorry, I've got a mouthful of apple down.
Well, you reap what you sow.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed over here. Right. So this is a Japanese actor. He began his career in 1993 after returning from the United States, where he attended college. He's appeared in a bunch of stuff. He's appeared in a film called Romeo and Juliet, but Romeo is spelled Romio and Juliet.
Oh.
And it's not like linked or anything like that, so I can't tell you anything more than that. Agitator. He's been in a film called Appleseed.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
The
I did
podcast
not
does it
see
again.
that.
Full circle.
Oh, another smash hit for the Wikicast. Wow, so this is Appleseed is a 2004 film based on a manga. And yeah, it looks like it bombed. It cost $10 million and it made 1.5 back.
Goodness.
Oh, in North America. Oh, okay, so that doesn't account for the Japanese box office. But
He's oh gosh, it's happened again. He's disappeared.
Welcome to the Old Man Dan podcast. Poetry, gardening, choral singing.
Well, readers, I don't know if you heard that one-sided conversation, but would you believe it's me and you again? The Old Man Dan podcast, back by popular demand. Yeah, Simon seems to be having really awful trouble with his electricity. Bless him. I can also say, just to you, because Simon's not here, so it can be a bit of a teaser, I will be replacing this week's choral piece of the week with another piece of poetry. I had such fun doing it last week, and as did Simon, and I hope did all of you, when you were listening to William McGonagall's absolutely outrageous poem. So I thought my choral piece this week will be once again replaced by poetry, which I think is in line with what I'm currently getting up to at the moment, because music has taken a bit of a back seat. I've been working on lots of projects and now they've come to a close. I'm not listening to quite as much, certainly choral stuff. Still listening to music, but not as much. And I was lying awake last night, struggling to get to sleep, so I reached for my trusty Staying Alive Real Poems for Unreal Times and found a really excellent one called The Honeycomb, and we'll be listening to that a bit later. Otherwise, I hope you're all well. Adam, if you're editing this podcast, can I say what an incredible job you did on that catchy little jingle for the Old Man Dan podcast? I absolutely love it, and I'm having serious thoughts about whether I start a little podcast about poetry and boring things that I enjoy. So curse you for that, because what I'm about to unleash onto the internet is a terrible, terrible thing.
hello.
Hello.
Hello!
You're
Hello! It's me, returned
back.
for another Infinity Dagger adventure!
Goodness gracious me. So you disappeared off again,
Yeah,
did you?
another power cut. I mean,
Wow.
we haven't had one since the last time we recorded. It's incredibly frustrating.
Well, I mean, as frustrating as it is, I think it's also a sign that I can now say, back by popular demand, the Old Man Dan podcast will make another appearance. I had a lovely chat with the readers. I was
Oh.
teasing a bit of content that's coming up later in the show. I think we had a jolly time, but I'm glad you're back.
I sense a spin-off podcast in the works. Although my friend,
don't.
my friend Claire, basically sent me a message after the last one came out to say, please make the Wikicast a Dan reads bad poetry podcast. I'll just listen to that every week.
I think the idea, certainly having heard the incredible jingle that Adam put in last episode, really got me thinking about, God, I think, you know what, just a podcast where I do talk about poetry, good and bad, would be just enormous fun. I'd enjoy that far too much.
I'm sure my friend Claire would be very up for. I mean, well, if you, any dear readers, I mean, including Claire, would be interested in doing such a project, which sounds to me like possibly the most boring thing I could imagine, then
even if we do an extended episode on William McGonagall and his kind of similar folk.
Mm-hmm. Well, let us know,
okay.
dear readers. I mean, we remain at your service. But this episode we are talking about, of course, what's his Tenma Shubuya, who I think,
you.
Thank you, who I think I got halfway through saying he'd been an Appleseed, and then I was just reading through his other stuff. So he's got to say, it's a bit of a weird Wikipedia article. You know how like there's a paragraph at the top before you have sort of the contents that is a brief summary. He has two. Actually, hang on. What's happened here? There are two which are nearly identical. What on earth has happened here? That's strange.
Are we going to discover another weird Wikipedia conspiracy?
Now, I think what's happened here is there are two versions here, and one is basically like definitely worse. The grammar is definitely worse than in the other version. So I think weirdly there are just two versions. This guy's so good he gets introduced twice. Got to say, looking at his picture, he's a very suave looking dude. I don't think I've seen any films with him in. I mean, the other films that
how old is he?
He is 51.
Okay.
Active from 1993 to present. I mean, he's done a bunch of TV in China and Japan. I don't think he's done any TV in the West. He's done a bunch of stage in Japan. He's done. He did a musical called Kumagon's Forest. He played Kumagon and Horosuke. The notes just say 7 regional big halls, which I definitely read wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
And he was also in Bolero in ballet.
Wow. So quite a talented chap.
So, but then his film, he's done a bit more widely. He's done some stuff in Hong Kong, and he's done some films that have actually got their own wiki articles. So he did a film. He did Ip Man. It's probably the most famous one. He was Colonel Sato in Ip Man, which is a Donnie Yen film, I want to say. Yes, it's a Donnie Yen film. And a whole bunch of other stuff, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce because it is either Japanese, Chinese, or in one case Taiwanese. But weirdly, one thing that stands out, because we're not going to talk about this guy for very long, because again, we remain committed to not making content. He was part of a multinational production called Airstrike, otherwise known as The Bombing or Unbreakable Spirit, which the people involved are interesting. The art director of the film was Mel Gibson.
Okay.
Just to presumably sprinkle some anti-Semitism in the film.
Right.
And then the cast, the first 3 members of the cast are Bruce Willis, Liu Ye, who I can't say I know from anything else, and Adrian Brody. This film looks nuts. So Liu Ye is a Chinese actor, and then there was a South Korean actor called Song Seon-hyun, who is also in it, and it's like seriously multinational from the looks of things. It also has, if I send you the link to the wiki on our Discord call, it has a seriously good poster, really stylized.
Oh
and
wow,
cool.
yeah.
How would you describe that poster?
You know the effect when ink gets wet and it starts to run and kind of become blotchy.
Yeah.
I think it's like that, but you've got this incredible shot of a dogfight between two planes flying over almost like a poppy field.
I was going to say, I think it's just grass, but there's these red splotches over the top of it that do make it look like poppies.
And the structure of the grass, kind of the taller blades of grass on each side, are bending and reaching towards the upper left and right corners, and it looks like one of those. Is it a nori gate?
Oh yeah.
Is nori right?
I think that's right. And then you got these big block Chinese characters at the bottom with the English title above it. It's a really cool poster, actually.
Tori. Nori is a sushi thing.
I
had sushi the other day, so I've got it on the brain.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it is Japanese/Chinese, so it revolves around the Japanese bombing of Chongqing, which started in 1938. So it's a Second World War story.
I was watching just the other day a really fascinating series of videos about Japanese cuisine, and specifically its relationship with, and indeed Japan's cultural relationship with sake, the drink.
Okay.
And it was really cool. I really like sake. I've had quite a bit in my time.
I don't
and
think
some really
I've
nice
ever
stuff
had
as
it.
well.
It's
incredible. There was an excellent description of it where it says it looks like a spirit. It's treated like a wine, but behaves like a craft beer.
Okay.
In terms of the range of flavor, and unlike with spirits and wine, when you're kind of judging the various grades and types of sake, there's kind of like you can have sweet and sour and neutral, floral, but then also umami. There's an actual category of and they went into such detail as that we're explaining that it's something to do with fish in Japan have less. It's like it has less iron in it in the way that the raw fish is prepared, and the sake has quite a lot of some elements in it, or vice versa. And as a result, the pairing together is even more striking and important than pairing like a good wine with a meal in like as we would in a Western Eurocentric culture. It was really cool, and as I say, the sake I've had has been absolutely delicious and so varied. It can be hot or cold or kind of room temperature. It can look like almost milk or totally clear like a wine. It can be sparkling. It can be still. It's amazing.
Wow. I mean, I have no idea about all this. I have to admit, I know a bit about Japanese culture, mostly through the art, but basically nothing about that side of that, about cuisine and stuff. So I'd
love to go to Japan.
Tell you what, we need to get John Mannion on the case. So I think it was last episode we talked. John Mannion sent us an email. Who's a reader of ours and has been for a very long time. Sent us a video of his talking about sherry, and I gave it a watch, and it was so good. The man knows his stuff. I would highly... John, can you do us one on sake, please?
That would be amazing.
I would very much like to watch that video because I really enjoyed the first one. It was a very simple production, but very conversational style about sort of different kinds of sherry, how it gets made. And again, that's a drink that I know I must have had at some point, but I've probably only had like the super dry end of the spectrum, which is what he said most people experience, you know. So yeah, John, go to Japan for us, please. Be our reporter in the field.
The Wikicast ambassador to Japan.
Oh, can you imagine how great that would be if we had like a roving reporter? Like, and this week we're checking in with John, and he's in Accra, Ghana. I don't know, what is the... Hang on, am I right in saying that is Ghana? Yeah, what is the national drink of Ghana? Surely every country has a national drink. What is... Actually, that's a point. What's the national drink of England?
England?
Probably bitter, I guess. Oh, tea.
Yeah, or just like... It probably is tea.
I'm just looking...
Tea or some kind of ale.
No.
It's England.
What a great article. There is an article called List of National Liquors.
Oh, cool.
So, not bootlickers. Those are the white supremacists. So the entry for England is gin.
See, gin is controversial, isn't it? Because London dry gin is very specifically English, but Geneva, which is the basis of what gin is Dutch and came over with William of Orange.
See, I thought the basis of gin was vodka.
No, Geneva, Jeniver.
So what's the difference between that and vodka?
Well, they're both distilled, aren't they?
And they're both from potatoes, aren't they?
No, gin is juniper berries.
No, I thought it was flavoured with juniper berries. Hang on, right, we're going to get on some
we
research. Here we go.
I think the difference between gin and vodka, most kind of importantly, is that gin is infused in the distilling process. So much like you make a cup of tea, you hang in a basket or something the flavours you want to impart in the gin, and as the gin distills and the vapours rise, condense and settle, and that's what gives you your gin.
Yeah.
The vapours extract those flavours, whereas in vodka that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think they're both the same base. But then
gin is a distilled alcoholic drink that derives its predominant flavour from juniper berries.
Yeah, and then production methods. Oh no, okay. So
fermented grain mash.
Yeah, I thought it was potato. I seem to remember reading somewhere that all gin starts out as vodka and then it gets flavoured. Oh, John Mannion is writing a furious email right now. Oh, okay. So there's pot distilled gin, column distilled gin, and compound gin.
Oh, I should also clarify before the emails right in. Jenever I spelt wrong. It's Jenever.
Oh.
Not Jeniver. Apologies.
Oh, God. Incorrect facts on the Wikicast. Get out.
Yeah, I know.
This will not stand. So interestingly, going back to this National Liquors article, England is actually listed as gin for the south, but whiskey for the north.
England?
Yeah, I would not have said that Northern England would be. I would have said.
Where is this article?
It's a list of national liquors on Wikipedia. I mean, it doesn't cite any sources. Actually, no, that's incorrect. It does cite some sources, but not for the UK. Because then it also says Irish whiskey for Northern Ireland, Scotch whiskey, single malts specifically for Scotland, and then Welsh whiskey for Wales. I don't think I've ever had Welsh whiskey.
Is that also... That's an American spelling of liquor, isn't it?
Liquor.
Yeah, we have an E in liquor.
I thought that there was a difference between liquor and liqueur.
There may well be. I'm just trying to think of whether they're reading England as the UK and whether it's been written by someone who doesn't quite understand that England and Scotland are two very different places.
No, yeah, there does appear to be a difference between liqueur and liquor. God damn it, how are we so incompetent on this subject of all subjects?
I can't believe England is listed as gin in the south and whiskey in the north. You would think it would be bitter.
Yeah,
like
bitter
Yorkshire
in
bitter
the north
is iconic.
To go back to why I looked this up, Ghana does have a national liquor. I'm sure my friend Alex probably is screaming at his radio set because for some reason he's listening to this on the radio, which is called Akpeteshi. The most oh my god, it goes by so many names. It goes by many names, including Apio, Ogoglo, Ogogoro, VC10, Kill Me Quick, Ifinifa, Kele. Oh god, Kumi Preko, Anferuase, Apietiti, Homeboy, Nana Drobo, One Touch, among others. What the is it? It's distilled palm wine or sugar cane, and then infused. So I guess a little bit like gin, actually. What are give me a country. Let's see what the national liquor of different countries.
Okay, can we have what's Belarus?
Belarus. Belarus is Krambambula.
Whoa.
What?
Fantastic.
Crambambula, an alcoholic mix of drink cocktail that typically consists of red wine and various kinds of liquor. It's a dirty pint.
Fantastic.
It's a cocktail that typically consists of red wine and various kinds of liquor, including gin, vodka, or rum.
Oh, they've got it down to a fine art in Belarus. I've said it once and I'll say it again. They know what they're doing.
Belarus, the favourite country of the Wikicast. Oh wow, in Iceland has one called Brennivin, which is also known as Black Death. Brackets, potatoes. That sounds very Icelandic. What I know about Icelandic culture, that seems to slot nicely in the middle. Brennivin apparently literally translates to burning wine, and comes from the same root as brandy. Brandivin.
I've now find so like because brandy is a fermented. It's basically a wine, isn't it? Brandivin, brandy wine.
Yeah,
cool. I've found this article and I'm going through Europe and I've come across Italy. Look at the comically long list of national drinks.
Where are we? Literally, oh my
Grappa,
god.
Limoncello, Amaretto, Amaro, Fernet, Myrto, Alchemez, Aperol, Campari, Cynar, Frangelico, Maraschino, Rosolio, Sambuca, and Strega.
Some of these are great. I think my favorite part about this is the little notes that go with it. So, what was I just reading? Greece, ouzo, parentheses, distilled 96% pure ethyl alcohol. Literally just Greece. This will you up.
Mm.
God, there are so many. I've never heard of half of these.
Yeah.
Apparently Spain's
we need to go.
national
We
liquor is
should go
sherry.
on a tasting, a European tasting
Oh my god, that's a great
of all
idea.
the national. Why don't we take this list, Simon, and try and tick off every opportunity we have to try and try one of these obscure things and see if we can try and taste the national liquor of every European country.
Yeah, I'm so down for that. I feel like it's a bit like Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, but we just get smashed. Like,
Yeah.
I'm look at the section on West Asia,
Okay.
and look at the variety of drinks that are on tap in West Asia.
Yeah. You've got things like arak, or maybe arak, or arak, or even arak.
Parentheses anise.
Yeah.
God, these are
Not a cousin, but a niece.
Hey, what? I mean, this is one of the most interesting wiki articles I think I've ever seen, and I've literally tried a handful of these drinks. I'm sure some of these are absolutely delicious. Fig brandy, buka from Tunisia.
I love brandy. Lord, it's good.
No, it's brandy. No. Cognac is a kind of brandy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's regional differences, isn't it? It's this whole French idea of terroir.
Yeah.
And that's basically how you can kind of distinguish whether someone is an old world wine enthusiast or a new world wine enthusiast, because the new world idea puts considerably less focus on the flavors of the kind of geographical location coming through in the wine, whereas old wine really does. Old world, rather.
I'd love to learn more about wine. I feel like that's something that's like a Skillshare course I would actually watch.
There's an amazing 2-series documentary on YouTube with James May from Top Gear, who I love, and Oz Clarke, very, very famous.
Oh, yeah, I think
critic.
I've seen a bit of this, yeah.
And yeah, they go, in the first series, they go around France, and in the second, they do the New World, like West Coast of America. And in the third one, they go up and down the UK, trying to find the national drink. And it's brilliant. It's good fun. It's very interesting.
Can you
highly recommend?
Can you just read out for me, Dan? Can you tell me what the national drink of Hungary is according to this list?
No, I can't. Are you talking about Unicum? I think I drank that at a house party in my first year.
I don't want to know that story.
No.
I mean, the one picture that they have on Wikipedia for Unicum is a very crusty looking bottle. It looks like a potion from like what would be like a health potion in a game, because it literally does have a plus sign on it.
By the looks of things, it is the Hungarian equivalent of Jägermeister. The liqueur is today produced by Zwak. According to a secret formula of more than 40 herbs, the drink is aged in oak casks. Wow, I bet that must be just bizarre.
I want to try some Unicum, you know? Like, I think we've all been there. Wow.
According to the manufacturer, the original Unicum is no longer distributed in the US, having been replaced by Unicum Next, a sweeter, thinner-bodied drink with a more prominent citrus flavour, rebranded as Zwak, because for some reason Unicum wasn't selling to a Western audience. Can't think why.
Zwak also sounds very onomatopoeic, like swak, 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 Unicum!
That's what it feels like when you take your first sip.
And there's also Unicum Plum. Which I suppose
Oh,
depends
really?
on... Yeah.
Of course there is.
It depends on what you eat beforehand. There's also Unicum Pineapple.
Dear.
Wow. This is... so it's named after Peter Zwak. That's why. After the fall of communism, Peter Zwak returned to Hungary and resumed production of the original Unicum.
Now, this is interesting. Switzerland has absinthe listed as its national,
alongside
as a national drink.
Alongside
and I thought it was
Goldschlager. I thought that was French,
I thought it was
I admit.
French, yeah.
I love that also.
Country of origin, Switzerland.
What
Amazing.
is
do
the
you,
most...
Do you remember the Chapel Quiet Altar Malta, where we managed to get our hands on a bottle of absinthe and started drinking it from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and none of us could see by 4?
I have to admit, I have a blank spot in my memory there. I can't think why.
That was the night where I kept going around to the various. We were for those who don't know, which is everyone, because you weren't in Malta with us. We were all staying in this big apartment block, and on each floor there were 2 apartments. across 4 floors, and the choir was basically occupying this entire building by ourselves. And on a particular day where we had a service in the morning and then nothing the following day and nothing in the afternoon. So that was the day in the week where we all agreed that we'd all go out on the lash. Anyway, we all started drinking from about lunchtime, and things were getting into a pretty sorry state post 2:00. And I remember it would have been maybe 3. This is just a guess because all sense of time left me by this point. But I was walking around with a saucepan, having emptied 5 sachets of chicken cuppa soup into the saucepan, and walking around to every flat with a ladle offering people soup of the day. Soup of the day? Can I interest you in the soup of the day? And they're like, why are you here? What are you doing?
I forgot about
Amazing. Iconic.
We were meant to be talking about this Japanese actor, but I feel like we've wrung as much out of that as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please.
Right, Dan. Now, do you have a choral piece of the week, as we traditionally do on this show?
Simon, I'm so glad you asked. This week we do not have a choral piece of the week.
What?
For two, I think, perfectly valid reasons. I haven't been doing a great deal of singing now that most of the projects I've been working on have come to a close, and choral scholars are no longer singing Compline. So I'm having a bit of a break. I'm listening to music, but not nearly as much choral stuff. Mm-hmm. What I am doing, however, after last week's episode, is I'm having a really jolly time just reading more poetry, specifically from my contemporary poetry anthology, Staying Alive, rather than the kind of the old stuff that I don't think you enjoy quite as much.
Yeah.
If at all.
Yes.
Yeah. So this week we're going to just have another poem.
Okay. Let me just find the mute button. Yep.
You might, don't tempt fate, because you might have a power cut again. This poem is taken from, as I say, Staying Alive, Real Poems for Unreal Times. It's an excellent anthology. If you have a copy of Staying Alive, you can follow along at home. It's on page 255. The poem is written by Pauline Stainer, she incidentally wrote a very good crucifixion, Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And the poem is called The Honeycomb. If you're sitting comfortably,
I am.
I will begin.
I've got my bottle of Unicum at the ready.
Oh, gosh. Well, actually, a bottle of Unicum for this particular poem might be fitting.
Okay. Wow, okay. You first had my interest, now you have my attention.
Here we go. The Honeycomb. They had made love early in the high bed, not knowing the honeycomb stretched between lath and plaster of the outer wall. For a century the bees had wintered there, prisoning sugar in the virgin wax. At times of transition, spring and autumn, their vibrations swelled the room. Laying his hand against the plaster in the May sunrise, he felt the faint frequency of their arousal. Nor winters later, burning the beeswax candle, could he forget his tremulous first loving into the humming dawn.
Yeah, that was all right.
The honeycomb.
I could get behind that. That was all right.
It's good. Oh, it's good. It's great. I love it. I think it's brilliant. There's another a couple of pages before, and I won't read the whole thing because it's quite long, but the title is My Beloved Compares Herself to a Pint of Stout, and it's excellent. You get such brilliant lines like, I look around to see her foaming out of the bedclothes, not laughing, but gazing at me out of four-legged eyes. She says, close your eyes, put your hands around me. I am the blackest, coldest pint you will ever drink. So sip me slowly. Let me linger on your lips, ooze through your teeth, dawdle down your throat before swooping down into your guts.
Unicum, available now.
Yeah, Unicum, proudly sponsored by the Wikicast.
I've got to try and find some now. I am genuinely going to have to try and find some. Actually, well, you know what? So I'm coming down to Exeter, as we were talking about just before we recorded the show. But maybe we should do a taste. Oh, we should do that. We should take the Patreon money and buy as many national liquors as we can and do a video of us just getting smashed on various international liquors.
That can only end well. That's a brilliant idea. I
Giggity
totally
dog.
endorse. Yeah. I'm just looking at whether you can buy it online for about £25. I wonder if you can buy miniatures. Oh, right. After the podcast, we'll be able to properly think this through.
Oh my god, yes.
Rolly, rolly,
I would like to talk about a film I recently watched with readers of the podcast will know the immortal Hugo Wickham. He joined me for a viewing along with Jake and Luke, two chapel choir tenors, lovely chaps, and we watched The Lighthouse.
Now, this was 2 years ago. Was it last year that it came out?
It was last year.
And this is Robert Pattinson and William Defriend. And
yes,
it's in black and white. And could you
directed
give us a premise?
by Robert Eggers.
So, what's the premise of the film, Dan?
The premise: there's an old sea-worn lighthouse keeper is joined by a new chap who wants to get into the trade. New chap is Robert Pattinson. And the premise, it's summed up quite nicely here. Two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s.
So, is this supernatural or is this sort of more just psychological?
It's more psychological.
Right.
It's deeply artistic in its kind of attitude, its script writing, its cinematography. It's shot in this wonderfully, it's almost perfectly square.
Yeah, it's a very old sort of aspect ratio. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, it is. And as a result, you get this constant feeling of real claustrophobia while you watch. And that's only exacerbated by these two living on this totally remote island. And there are kind of allusions to sea myth and Greek myth. And there's this kind of haunting whale song that turns into kind of almost human screaming, and throughout it's really amazing. I don't quite know what to make of it yet, and I certainly don't fully understand it. I think I'll have to watch it a few more times and read some wider criticism of it. But it's a really powerful film. I mean, is it
horror? Because that's the thing that's put me off watching it. Is it almost looks like it has sort of horror elements.
I think I could confidently say it is absolutely not horror.
Okay.
Wikipedia refers to it as a psychological thriller, and I think that's probably right. It's definitely a thriller. There are moments of real tense kind of I think it was Mark Kermode who said there are moments when you're watching it, and I think this is directly enhanced by the aspect ratio that it's shot in, but you're watching this story play out, and there are moments when you feel like you shouldn't be watching what's going on. There are real moments of just kind of it's very uncomfortable, and there'll be certain kind of shots tactically placed within the story where you'll just suddenly have a moment of a character staring into the camera as if they're looking right through you. It's just really good. It's really good, and it stays with you, and the score is mental. And really haunting, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen The Lighthouse, please do.
See,
it's brilliant.
So when Pixel Girl and I, we went back to her family, my hometown-in-law, I guess now, to see her family for her birthday. And when we were coming back, we were listening to the Radio 4 cinema show, which is on late night on a Sunday, so I'd never heard it before. They were talking about another film that had Robert Pattinson in, and it wasn't Ad Astra, but it was, oh god, I'm gonna have to look this up now, because basically the point I'm getting at here is that since he was like a teenage heartthrob and everything like that, and Twilight, and I guess Harry Potter to a lesser extent, he's taken on some really interesting projects.
It's not Good Time, is it? The one where he plays a drug?
No, High Life, I think it is.
Oh,
he's in Tenet as well. I didn't know that.
Good Time. I've seen Good Time, and that's fantastic. He doesn't give a bad performance, and that's why the pairing of someone like Pattinson with Willem Dafoe is just genius. They have real electricity.
Because he's a good actor. Like, that's the thing. Like, yeah. I mean, he acted like he enjoyed doing Twilight whilst he was doing it. So, it was High Life that I'm looking at here, directed by Claire Denis. Science fiction, a horror film about a bunch of criminals sent to go towards a black hole, and one of them has a daughter. So that was... But yeah, like, since he did Cosmopolis, which was... I recognise that. That was sort of a... Oh, okay, no, that one didn't go down very well. I was going to say it went to Cannes, but it didn't do very well. And he's done Queen of the Desert and The Lighthouse and, like a bunch of interesting projects. Like, I feel like it would have been. It's something that Daniel Radcliffe did as well, didn't he? Like, after he had the international fame and acclaim, and he was like, right, I'm going to pick projects that I really want to do. And like, you know, I feel like those are the actors that I'm most jealous of, really, because they know that their career is made at this point. They could just pick the weird projects. And Daniel Radcliffe has really picked some weird projects. It's just great, really. Like that's what I would do. I feel like if I was to have played Harry Potter, if I was to be Paul Atreides or something, like, after that, you know, get weird with it. Why not? I have to admit, I don't know what Tenet is actually about. I didn't realise that he was in it either.
No.
This is the one that is meant to be still coming out this year.
I see.
The Christopher Nolan film. I don't know, apparently they're still going ahead with it this year, despite the fact that that's probably not a good idea.
Budget $200 to $225 million. Lord.
For one day of work, Michael Caine was merely given his pages and has not heard from Christopher Nolan since. He literally just turned up and he was like, right, here are your lines. And then, wow, he's going to be mystified when he watches the film. He's going to have no idea. Oh my God.
Oh, Kenneth Branagh's in it, though.
He's 87.
That'd be great.
It's...
Well, something to look forward to.
Yeah, oh man, I don't know. I just feel like it's very irresponsible to still release a film in this situation. Like, you know, going to a cinema, and especially if you're going to a cinema and to see something that elicits an emotional reaction where you're gasping or you're laughing or what have you, and if you're an American, clapping and cheering, like, that's just a recipe for trapping germs in a room. Like, it's such an easy way to infect a great number of people, as much as singing in a church is, really. You've got so much, you know, exhalation going on that in an enclosed space that. Much as I love going to the cinema, don't get me wrong, I love going to the cinema and it is a very different experience. I just don't think it's responsible to release this film now, much as it will probably be the only film released this year. God, what do you think they're going to do for the Oscars?
I didn't even think about that. I don't know.
No films have been released. So at this rate, Tenet is going to win every Oscar by default.
Maybe that's the thinking. It's going to be just a more dramatic equivalent of entering The Martian into Best Comedy.
Yeah. But I was
just tactfully playing the, you know.
Just looking it up. Did the Oscars stop for the Second World War? I don't think they did.
No.
List of Academy Awards. Oh God. How do I get them by year? Because I don't think they did stop. 1939. Let's have a look. So they awarded films in 1939. Oh, because that was when Gone with the Wind came out. Yeah, they still released films and they still did the Oscars in World War II. So it would take a hell of a lot to stop them happening this year. Because of COVID-19, Academy President announced that for the 2021 Oscar ceremony, streaming movies not shown in theaters would be eligible. So that's interesting. That stuff like Netflix originals,
especially when it was, because Marriage Story was nominated, was it not?
Did that?
Or certainly the actors were.
That got a theatrical release, didn't it?
Did it?
I thought it did.
It was free on. Marriage Story was a Netflix original, was it? I think
it was, but I thought it had a theatrical, because I felt like Netflix basically highlighted the films that they thought they, you know, could get Oscars for, and then did a limited theatrical release to meet the requirements.
Release. Marriage Story had its worldwide premiere in the Venice Film Festival, so it did film festivals. Netflix gave it a limited release in theatres beginning November 6th, before streaming the film in December. So it was only in theatres for a month. Yeah,
but that's probably the minimum required to... Okay, so actually, I'm reading here. The Academy Awards require films to have received a theatrical release in the previous calendar year in at least one cinema in Los Angeles County for at least 7 days. That's the previous requirement. And the Golden Globes have changed their stuff. And it looks like they're basically dropping that requirement whilst cinemas are closed. So that's actually going to be really interesting to see how that impacts the awards next year. I could not tell you anything. What were the big things that have come out this year, because I don't really watch very much at this time in my life. Well, watch this space, dear readers, because I feel like that's going to be when the nominations come out. That's going to be really interesting. Anyway, sorry, I've said that a whole bunch. Right, what's next on the docket, Dan? What's next on the billboard?
I think we've got some thank yous to say, have we not?
We have to thank some of our executive and regular producers. Top lad.
And because this is an incredibly important moment of the podcast that we never forget,
No.
never have forgotten, it brings us to Patreon Corner, where we'd like to say an enormous thank you to those who support the podcast. Without this vital funding, the podcast couldn't exist. It pays for our wonderful editor, it pays for our hosting, it pays for us to consider lines of merch, and will hopefully be contributing to some of the costs for Simon and I to do a video on the tasting of as many national drinks as humanly possible.
I'm so excited about this idea.
And will inevitably also pay for the cost of the hospital
ambulance
for stomach pumping and things. Yeah. So I would like to say an enormous thank you to our top dogs. If you're new to this part of the podcast, you can either support us by being a top dog as part of Team Dog, represented by myself, or a top cat and associated with Team Cat, represented by Simon. I need
and Jasmine.
Not say which is the obvious choice, but let's begin with top dogs. And we have a new top dog here, as I recognise. We have Michael Zaborniak, Lexi at front desk, Alex, no longer changing their name to Dan, hashtag Team Dog. Thank you, Alex. Eve Sharples, Alistair Fortune, Samantha, Peter Reed, Maggie, Colin J. Brown, Kodzo, Eric Davis, Ben McMurtry, Jay Wright, and Eric Bolliger. Thanks so much.
I, however, would like to thank the sensible people on patreon.com/the Wikicast who support the top cat tier. And those people are, of course, Bendant, Thomas Hill, Simon P., Jack Easton, Izzy Christie, Tom Withington, Nafi Iftikhar, Christopher Betterton, Trustworthy Ginger, Kenneth Kazmirek, Layla Medina, River Ward, Oliver Craigie, Will Janice Humphreys, Rents Kirk, Oliver Burkhart, Omar Miranda, Cole Mansfield, Princess Andromeda, Choco Cat, Isabel Ostrowski, and the one, the only, Daniel Hanvey.
Thank you so much, guys, for supporting us. It really is an amazing thing. If you would like to think about supporting the podcast, but would like to know a bit more about us aside from what's going on with the podcast, then we don't often plug it, or rather, we don't plug it often enough. The incredible Discord.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
If you'd like to know more, I mean, obviously the podcast kind of gives you a good amount of information in its own right.
Does it?
If you want to get to know the community and these amazing supporters, then head over to the Discord.
The Wikicast channel is one of my favourite channels on the Discord, I've got to say. I love it. Top lad. And now we find ourselves in Correspondence Corner, and we are very excited to announce the return of the podcast trials, the Choose Your Own Adventure series that's been written for us by Cameron. We have a few emails, just a few orders of business that I'd like to get through before then. Starting off with... I should have picked an email before I did this. This email from Sam, aka Tech Wizard, who I believe is the person on the Discord who's been putting together the user guide for the climate model I've been coding on stream. So shout out to Tech Wizard. Dear Mrs. Moore and Clark, this is the first time I'm writing in. I've been a listener for about half a year now and have completely caught up. Do not worry. Since I'm an avid Star Wars fan, I have to make a comment about the correct order to watch Star Wars. Sorry, I realised that the first Star Wars was also singular.
Yeah.
I cannot understand how you could watch it in that order. Why would you do that? There is a case to be made for chronological order, so you'd understand the references in the later movies. There is a case to be made for the intended order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as that is story-wise how the events unfold. However, I fail to see the logic behind the correct order, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. Why would you insert the prequels between 5 and 6? Skipping the sequels, on the other hand, is completely justified. The logic, and this is Peter Robinson, I think, who came up with this, is 4 and 5, you start out really strong, and then you watch the prequels, but you don't want to finish on a sour note. So you'd go, 4, 5, get the prequels out of the way, then finish on Return of the Jedi, and if you want to, then carry on into the sequels. But I think the idea was to avoid the last thing you watch potentially being Revenge of the Sith, because... Oh dear. Finish off with Return of the Jedi and finish strong, I don't know if, Dan, you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I understand it. I think, to be honest, me being fairly kind of a plain sailing chap, I would probably just watch them in chronological order.
Of their release?
Chronological in terms of the time within the
story, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if you start out on the prequels, why would you bother continuing? You get to the end of episode 1 and be like, what was this?
I would only do that because I am aware of it. I think as a new person watching them, then that's probably a dangerous
But
road
and
to go
also,
down.
when you go from episode 3 to episode 4, the jump in quality, the jump in visual effects going way downhill, but then the jump in quality going way uphill is like whiplash. Like,
Yeah.
I know that it sounds a little counterintuitive, Tech Wizard, but I stand by that order, particularly if you don't want to do the sequels. I think if you do include the sequels, then maybe there's a bit more justification for doing it in the order of release. But I'm just a podcast host, not a cop.
I have an email here from Ted, and the email is titled Correspondence with a capitalised O and a C. Why they are capitalised, we shall soon find out. Hi Simon and Dan, I've been watching Simon's vlogs and videos for several years and just recently started listening to these podcasts, and it is indeed the highest quality combination of satire and debate in the land. Brilliant. I'm about to start studying for an MSc, hopefully, in astrophysics at St Andrews come September, and I've been considering starting to vlog my experience there. So, do either of you have any tips or advice regarding how to balance time, when to start the vlog? Additionally, Simon, I have read over your thesis and it is incredibly interesting, especially now after completing a physics degree because now I can understand it. It would be absolutely awesome to nerd out over this among your other sciencey adventures over the last few years. I know it's a long shot, but no harm in trying. Give my best to Pixel Girl and congratulations on your engagement between you and Dan, obviously. Couple goals and all that.
So, thank you very much, Ted.
Amazing.
In terms of when to start the vlog, I'd say there is an argument to be made to that the most interesting bits to capture are when you start. I didn't do that because when you start is also an incredibly tumultuous time and it's very difficult. And why would you make life more difficult for yourself?
I think also it's a good thing to give yourself 3 or 4 months of settling because I think it could probably impact your time, especially starting off. Maybe it's different with if you're doing a graduate degree rather than an undergraduate, but I think it's good to give yourself time where you can actually just be yourself and settle and not be that guy at the freshers party who's got his camera out and is vlogging. You know what I mean?
And also, editing takes a lot of time. Like, it is a big time sink. And, when you're starting out, you do kind of need that time just to get your feet under the desk and get to know people and, not be like, oh, sorry, guys, I can't go out tonight. I can't do this social because I'm editing my vlog. There is an argument to be made for it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like you're better off, as Dan says, giving yourself a bit of breathing room. And then in terms of tips, film as much as you feel comfortable filming, really, because the more content you have to work with, the more options you'll have in editing. And it doesn't matter how much you film, you will always wish that you got that one shot that you didn't think of. And so, give yourself flexibility, get time lapses. Whilst you're working, you can set the camera up to do a time lapse of you or the environment, capture your point of view. I mean, the thing is, just make stuff is probably the most important thing. Just film and see what you get out of the footage that you take, and does that align with what you want to make? Watch other people's vlogs, see what they've done that you like and what they've done that you don't like, and then just make stuff, and eventually you'll learn by doing. You'll learn what shots you need and how to combine them in the right way. So I'd say give yourself a bit of a break to begin with, and then watch lots of vlogs and make lots of vlogs. And over time, over the episodes, you will gradually learn how to turn that image you have in your head into the actual finished product.
There you go.
I have an email here, which I couldn't resist, from Henry, called School Stories. Dear Simon and Dan, watching older Wikicasts, I have some stories of my own from school. So you remember we asked people for their best stories from their school years.
Ah, yes.
One time there was a fight going down, and one of the people's locked arms to stop teachers being able... Sorry, some of the people's locked arms to stop teachers being able to get in and break up the fight. Like a shield wall. Great, coordination. Another story, my first year maths teacher, who no longer works at the school, for reasons that will probably become clear, was, to put it politely, a crackhead.
Oh dear.
One student put their feet up on the table in front of the class, so he stole their shoes and chucked them out of the 3rd floor maths room window. He then told them to go and get them back, and when he was underneath the window, poured his hot cup of tea on him and then locked him out of the classroom.
Yeah.
Wow! I can't imagine why this person would no longer be working at the school. Christ.
That's unreal.
Another story, when we had a lockdown rehearsal... Oh my God, where did you go? Hogwarts. When we had a lockdown rehearsal, the science teacher put us all in the corner of the classroom. He then thought it would be a good idea to get out his laser pointer and pretending that it was a gun sight.
Oh my God.
Where did you go to school, Henry? And then, oh God, is there a...
I think it must be. It's probably America, right?
Yeah, doing like a lockdown rehearsal. I mean, I know Pixel Girls School.
Although they
done
say
them.
year 7 on a year 7 residential, so it's not America.
Yeah. Unless they're translating for us Brits.
Maybe.
And then there's a last story here, which is a rather gory, and it involves someone's finger getting chopped off by a door, and a carpet needs to be repainted. So,
oh dear.
People may be eating. I'm not eating my apple anymore, but people may be eating whilst reading this. So I'm not going to relay that one.
Well, thank you, Henry, for those truly terrifying stories. We have a brief one here from Dominic, titled "Poets Corner House." Dear Messrs. Clark and Moore, I very much enjoyed your last rambling on Poets Corner. I found it particularly fascinating as my last 2 years in university have been spent in a house called the Poets Corner. So clearly I'm now marked for poetic greatness. They will have to save a space for me at the Abbey. I very much look forward to your fortnightly rambling and the potential upcoming merch. Kind and warmest regards, Dominic.
Wow, what a cool name.
Aged XXI.
Ooh, nice.
Nice.
That's a great name for a halls. I like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, before we go on to the Choose Your Own Adventure, we have an email here from Mika Han. Hi, Simon and Dan. While reading and enjoying your most recent podcast, I was a little surprised by a conversation about a hypothetical Harry Potter TV show. Given the increased vitriol JK Rowling has been spouting amongst the trans community recently, I was surprised you just casually mentioned her, making more money off the series without mentioning this. I understand the argument of separating art from artist, however, not mentioning her recent behaviour while mentioning her by name felt odd. I just wanted to address this because I think when the email had been sent to us, it was pre this late. Because the thing is, she has been doing this for quite a while. JK Rowling has some very problematic views. For those of you who have been mercifully unaware of this, she has basically come out swinging as a TERF and really doubled down as being anti-trans and sort of basically science denying, I feel like would be a good way of putting it. So the email was sent to us before this latest wave of her really doubling down happened. I do think that we were remiss to not mention it because I'm pretty sure that when that episode was recorded, I think that this latest spate had happened. I can't remember exactly when we recorded it, but
no, nor can I. I think certainly, regardless of whether it had explicitly happened at its worst or not, we would have been able to mention the kind of the history that she has had with various feeling the need to comment on things.
Yeah, and I feel like just to sort of raise this issue, because I think Mika's completely right to raise this with us, because just to continue your email, actually, I'm writing this email not in any way to accuse you of agreeing, but rather to suggest that mentioning her name not mentioning her name and recent anti-trans comments is a form of harm to the trans community. At this point, it feels like mentioning The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump and then wishing he writes another book. This first book is unrelated to his current actions, but wishing for future business writing without acknowledging the sexual assaults and children in cages seems short-sighted and wrong, which I agree with. Yeah, Lindsay Ellis did a good video on this basically about how you can like the stuff that Rowling has put out before. We can like Harry Potter, and Dan is very much a Potterphile. And I love the books as a kid.
And I will always be.
But I think
that's really important. I was having this debate just the other day actually with someone when we were talking about films, having just watched The Lighthouse, and I went on an extended ramble about American Beauty. The film starring Kevin Spacey, and I think it's really, really fascinating to discuss issues like this, where at its core the debate revolves around how do you separate art from the artist, and I think and this is my opinion, and I don't mean this to offend anybody, and I completely take Micah's points in the email. I think they are totally right. In the points that they are raising, but I think to understand and develop a relationship with artwork in whatever form, it's really, really important to be able to consume that art in and of its own right.
So this is the idea of death of the author, basically.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important that art form can exist on its own without having to have a relationship with its creator. And that's flawed, certainly, but I think it's really important because as soon as that relationship becomes more tangible and apparent, you'll find the phrase cancel culture jumps to mind, and let's just leave it there. I think. I think it's important.
Lindsay Ellis did a video about this recently that was really good, actually, about Rowling a death of the author, because I think there is a definite difference between separating the art and artist. In the case of someone like Wagner, for example, we can enjoy the music but acknowledge that he was deeply anti-Semitic and that inspired a lot of his art. But with Rowling, she's still alive, and there is still the potential, for example, in the form of a TV show, of more art and more profit for her being made, from this intellectual property that is pre-existing and predates her, kind of like violent swing into right-wing fear-mongering. So I feel like it is a bit more complicated, and I think it is very possible to sort of look back on the experience that we both had with Harry Potter when we were younger. But to quote, Mika says this as well, funnily enough, in her email. While I would love to keep Harry Potter in my life, I refuse to do so at the expense of the lives and safety of trans people. I feel like you can hold on to the memories and the experiences you've had with her work in the past, but to continue to support her at present and in the future when it comes to new works and remixes of her work or whatever it may be, that is actively supporting her positions now. So I feel like it is possible in most cases where the author is dead, basically, to separate art from the artist. But
absolutely,
when there
I think that
is the potential for more
point.
Content, that's when it becomes more problematic. So
I was having a conversation with somebody who has now stopped listening entirely or deliberately going out of their way to stop listening to Michael Jackson and his music. And they laid out a perfectly coherent argument as to why they're doing it. But I just fundamentally disagree with the need to, because of this importance of art and the artist or creator and what they create. I mean, if you don't recognize that a creator and what they create are two fundamentally and importantly different things, then where do you draw the line? Because we're, for example, and taking it to a in a very general but extreme sense, because if a line isn't drawn, then you can absolutely take these things to extremes. We live in a society. We live in a Western society which has its foundations in the philosophy and morals born of ancient Greece. And while these individuals were clearly great intellects, these are also the same people who would take young boys as sexual slaves, might be a strong word, but in return for sexual favors, they would educate and be patrons to them. Now that I don't think is okay, and that I think is absolutely a misuse of power and position over a younger individual. That's clearly wrong. But I'm also then not going to say, well, as a result, I'm never going to read the works of Plato, Socrates, or Herodotus ever again.
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
It's really important that for there to be a gap between the two. And going forward, I agree with Micah's point. If Rowling was to write another Potter book and start using those books to further her own right-wing agenda, then okay, yes, then that is a different thing. But I can't think of any times where, even now, when I consume the books, and I do so every year at least 13 times, I read the series 13 times a year, which is slightly obsessive and probably wrong in its own way. But there are never times there where I feel that is a bad thing to do. And I think what's happened is that the person that she is now and the person she was when she was writing the books are two different people.
Yeah, I think basically the separation of art and artist is inherently made more difficult when there's the possibility of that artist making more art. And how does the existing art sit in the context of that potential future content?
But in the same vein, it is important to, if there is a separation between the art and the artist, then you cannot boycott later art produced without evaluating it as art fairly in its own right, because otherwise you can't stand up to your first argument. You can't say that there is a separation between the art and the artist, but I'm never going to read a JK Rowling book again. I mean, if you want to do that, of course you can. I'm not saying you can't, but I think if you are going to say that there is a separation, then you've got to judge both fairly.
I don't know. I feel like yeah, there is that.
Do you know what I mean, though? Like, by saying that you're not going to, I'm just not going to engage with it, which of course you are. You can do, and that's fine. But if it were me, even knowing, if I read a review saying, "Oh, JK Rowling's new Harry Potter book is absolutely vile, and it will mar your image of this glorious thing from childhood deeply, I would still like. I mean, I read The Cursed Child, and that was getting panned by what it was doing. But I would much rather be able to formulate my own opinion of it than just boycott it for the sake of not consuming it at all.
But then
And
by
that
consuming
that might
it,
just
you are,
be me.
you are endorsing, well, not endorsing, but you are supporting her and by proxy her views. I feel like it's a bit like me refusing to buy, I don't know, let's say that in the past life earlier in life I was a big fan of The Art of the Deal or something, and then Trump does all of the stuff he's done as a president, and then he comes out with a new book. Even if I did like that previous book, I wouldn't want to buy it so as to not support him and knowing the views that he has. I feel I do understand what you're saying in terms of being able to assess the art separate from the artist, but I just feel like there is a fundamental difference when there is the potential for more art and the artist is still alive. I can't believe I just used the phrase artist and Donald Trump in the same sentence, but there we go.
Indeed, it's a deeply complicated thing, isn't it? And the most important thing is that we can discuss it, and we can talk about it, and we can give everyone their time to make their point. And as I say, I think Micah's email is absolutely spot on. I think, and I do agree mostly.
I think the important thing is that we were remiss to not mention it last time, and certainly, and do let us know what your opinions are. We don't want to get bogged down in this for weeks and weeks of discussion, but it is an important topic. And unfortunately, in this particular case, it is a cultural touchstone for so many people our age that has been tainted by her actions more recently. So. Yeah, I've just realised,
and actually, we would just say it just quickly on this same point. Do you remember when we made an announcement back in early days of the podcast, where we were deliberately trying to make more of an effort to approach emails from a more gender neutral perspective? Yeah. This is just another example where Simon and our own kind of subconscious cultural biases. And if we were more aware of the issues, I think we would have made more of a point to highlight them. And not doing so, it's just an opportunity for us to learn.
Yeah. Also, Micah, I just realised that. So Dan's been pronouncing your name right the whole time. When she's very helpfully put at the bottom, spelling out the name, and then like the rock Micah, but I assumed you meant like the rock star Mika. That's why I've been calling you Mika instead of Micah. Sorry, that's me just being an idiot and not reading what you've written properly.
I haven't listened to Mika for so long, and I used to absolutely love his stuff.
I just remember that it was a bit like Alvin and the Chipmunks. I just remember it being one of the key features was it was just very high.
Oh, a seriously incredible musician. Like, really, really amazing.
You know who else is a seriously incredible artist, though, Dan?
I think I might, yeah.
Cameron, our friend Cameron Steele, who has written in. He's actually sent in a updated version of the Podcast Trials Chapter 2. So Dan, this is the Choose Your Own Adventure. Now, you read this last time? I think you should carry on and read Chapter 2 now. So this is before it was just prologue, and this is now we actually get to choose what happens.
Fantastic. Do we need? I don't think. Can you? If I'm going to read it, do you think you could give us a review of what happened last time?
So last time I was eating a bunch of scones. And you read a thing that basically said if we there was a contest that would get the Wikicast, if we won, would get the Wikicast on the front page of Apple Podcasts and trending for 6 weeks or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the podcast the challenge was, if I'm honest. Can you? Was it to do with specialist knowledge? Like we had to sort of answer questions on our particular subfields.
Yeah. And if we passed, then it would give the podcast incredible profile and publicity.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, I'm so excited for this.
Okay. And in this is where, just scrolling through, this is where the Choose Your Own Adventure truly comes to light. There are options here that I'll be asking you, Simon, and
you come across an old wizard who claims that free will is an illusion. If you disagree, turn to page 72. If you agree, turn to page 72.
Yeah. Here we go.
last time in the podcast trials, our scone-loving friends realized they could lose all of their podcast income if the fans found out that Pixar Girl is actually Simon in disguise. In a brash attempt to hold on to their bursting wallets, the two were whisked away from reality as they entered the podcast trials. How will our heroes fare as they prove their expertise to get to the top of the Apple Podcast charts? Well, let's find out.
Chapter 2. Cooking and Cavemen. Simon and Dan found themselves standing in a vast expanse of whiteness. Granted, much of England can be described in the same way, but this was no ordinary place. Everywhere they looked, the two men saw nothing but endless, featureless white space. Behind them, someone cleared his throat. Sitting at a desk made entirely of glass was a handsome, middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair. "Welcome, gentlemen." Dan gasped. Turning to Simon, he whispered, "That's Tim Cook. He's Apple's CEO." Simon scrutinised the businessman in front of them. "Well, he's not exactly Bill Gates, is he?" The man straightened in his chair. "I am Timothy Cook. This is my assistant, Mr. Smothers." A dapper young man appeared nearby, holding aloft a tray with a single colourful martini. "Why do you call him that?" asked a grinning Simon as the assistant massaged his boss's shoulders and showered him with compliments. "Well, it's his name, isn't it?" Dan stepped forward. "It is an honour to meet you, sir. I am a tremendous admirer of your company. I even worked in it for some time myself."
You would go weak at the knees if you met Tim Cook. Tim Apple,
probably
just
would.
saying.
Tim Apple, yeah. Mr. Cook turned and whispered to his assistant. "Who is this young firebrand, Smothers?" "Daniel Moore, sir. He was a grunt in Sector 7G. "Daniel, eh? Well, gentlemen, I'm a very busy man, so let's get right to it. Look around you. Here you can make your first choice, but you shouldn't really. You should just do what you're told. Look around, or break the tension with some stunning punning. What do you want to do?"
Well, obviously we're going to do some punning, Dan. That's a fundamental part of this podcast.
An excellent choice. Dan smiled. "Yes, I suppose it's Tim to get cooking." As in time to get cooking. Very nice.
The true sign of a successful punner is when you have to explain it.
Now, the next line is going to trigger anyone with an Apple device, so do be careful, and mine will probably go off. "Hey, Siri," muttered the CEO. "Oh, no, phone's all right. Good. An automated Apple sentry robot teleported into the room and aimed an array of deadly weapons at Dan. "Escort these two off premises, please." The robot stood up straight, lowered its weapons, and began to speak in an attractive feminine voice. So just talk normally for this one, Dan. Oh, thanks. Lovely. "Before I can do that, you'll need to change your location services settings. In location services settings, turn on..." "Never mind, Siri," Mr. Cook interrupted. "Well, it looks like you two have another chance. Look around, please." So I'm now going to click on look around.
Wait, has this got hyperlinks?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Simon and Dan could still see nothing but endless white. "Charming, sir," crooned Dan, admiring the minimalism. "This is our server room," the CEO continued. "They can't be seen with the naked eye, but this room is made of innumerable windows into tiny worlds, their light blending together in pure whiteness. These are Apple's simulated world servers. Each is an entire universe at our fingertips. With Apple's awe-inspiring technology, we can enter the worlds we've created, allowing us to see them, change them, and learn from them. This brings us to the matter of your presence. Behold, your trials." He flipped open a beautiful, glistening, brand-new MacBook and spun it around to let Dan and Simon see the screen. The force of the spin snapped the hinges and the screen fell off. "Smothers!" Mr. Cook called out. Mr. Smothers immediately proffered a replacement laptop. As soon as it was opened, the screen burst into a wondrous display of multicoloured light. The source was a rainbow cartwheel that plodded on intermittently in one corner. "Smothers!" The third laptop worked as intended, displaying 4 rectangles, 4 windows into simulated universes. "Each of these worlds needs your help, gentlemen. Are you ready to aid them?" "No!" exclaimed Simon, suddenly aware of his missing baked goods.
Thank you.
The first of 4 worlds came into picture, the blurriness of the image melting like ice. The picture showed a lightly forested mountainside in the evening where a group of Neanderthals sat around a campfire by a cave. Let's start out by seeing if you have more intellect than even the most basic of our ancestors. Good luck. And Simon and Dan disappeared once again. The boys step into the midst of a tribe of dirty cavemen, a campfire blazing in their midst. The Neanderthals sit up, dumbstruck. Dan and Simon are rather dumbstruck as well, but in their case it's because of the story's jarring transition into the past to present tense. How very unprofessional. Mr. Cook's disembodied voice whispers through the trees. Dr. Clark, your friend may aid you, but this trial is yours.
Oh,
to
God.
demonstrate your knowledge of atmospheric physics and prove that you are an educator worth your salt, you must teach these men something that will accelerate the development of their civilization. If you succeed, you may be able to improve our own universe by alterating in the very but I talk too much. Keep this simple, gentlemen, and make it quick. The largest, hairiest caveman stands up, clearly nervous. Zug zug, he grunts. Welcome. Dan looks at his partner and gestures to the caveman, inviting Simon to take the lead. Now, here's another choice for you here. Would you like to return the greeting or assert dominance?
Oh, God. Now, assert dominance sounds like I could just... That could be... You know how, like, in games where, like, you choose, like, a dialogue option, and you'll be like, oh, assert dominance. And they're like, Simon got his wang out and started helicoptering whilst walking towards the ape man. It's like, oh, that's not what I wanted at all. Oh, so they went zug zug. I go zug zug back.
So you're going to return the greeting.
I'll return the greeting. Whilst bowing.
Simon and Dan greet the cave. Oh God, hang on. Let me just engage a bit of brain for reading. Hang on. Simon and Dan greet the cavemen warmly, if somewhat awkwardly. Zug zug, smart men. Little smart men have smart for us. I suppose so, says Simon, scratching his aching head. You look around at the humble home of the cavemen. There are no women or children to be found. They must be out hunting or foraging. Your eyes fall upon a rather systematic arrangement of plants, perhaps an early attempt at agriculture. There are no visible tools, constructed habitats, or domesticated animals nearby. The only man-made object in sight is the fire, a huge pyre of flame that billows smoke into the sky. Without a clear place to start, teaching these men something significant could prove to be a Herculean task. The sun shines brightly in the middle sky, a few clouds swirling around it. Beyond this mountain are many more of the same, each one reaching higher than the last. Thin valleys carve tight spaces between them, sparkling with pristine rivers. One such well-watered valley lies nearby, far below you, nestled in a deep depression between this mountain and another. In another direction, the mountainous terrain tapers into gently sloping hills where small animals graze. The few things the cavemen do have might be worth a closer look. Do you want to walk over to the plants or step up to the fire?
Oh my God. Let's learn more about our environment. Let's have a look at the plants.
Okay, so just clicking on that hyperlink there. Simon waltzes over to the fledgling farmland.
This is what I was talking about. I didn't want to, like, shimmy over to the plant. I want to do it like a Neanderthal.
Dan tries to follow, but he is unfamiliar with the waltz, and the cavemen make fun of his footwork. In the fertile soil of the garden, you find the diminutive ancestors of modern produce. In one plot are a few multicoloured, misshapen vegetables, the earliest potatoes. Nearby, the cavemen are growing ancient corn, which look more like stalks of wheat and less like the juicy cobs that pair so well with butter. Nearby, Dan wraps his arms around his torso, struck by a chilling breeze. Inquiring about the season, he learns that this is the very height of summer. Do you think your atmospheric knowledge could revolutionise the farming industry, or would you like to try something else? You have 3 options.
Oh my God. How long, by the way, how long is this chapter going to be? I feel like this episode is extremely long as it is.
Not too much longer, I should think.
Okay.
Would you like to point at the distant hills, point at the well-watered valley, or leave and walk to the campfire?
So I am at the farm, and I can either point at, what was it, the hills?
The distant hills,
the valley.
the well-watered valley, or go back to the campfire.
And this is an agricultural garden. It's like a producing food.
fledgling farmland.
Oh, God.
There's some corn cobs, and diminutive potatoes.
We're gonna take me to the river, Dan. Take me to the point of the river.
Simon points at the deep, well-watered valley. Water good for plant, and valley warmer than mountain. Warm good for plant too. Change home. Take crops there.
Change home. Homes
The
under the
cavemen-
hammer.
The cavemen, excited at the revelation you've offered them, quickly begin to pack up their meagre possessions. Their advice given, Simon and Dan are pulled from the simulation and allowed to observe as Mr. Cook speeds up the flow of time in the world server. The cavemen cheerfully set up their new home in the valley. Very early in the fall, before the crops have grown, cold air begins to billow down the sides of the mountains and gather in the valley between them. As frost kills off the season's harvest, Simon realises that the valley could be referred to as what physics called a frost pocket. Bravo! As Mr. Cook requested, this experience has taught the cavemen a very valuable agricultural lesson. Unfortunately, hunting and gathering proved dismally fruitless for the cavemen this year, and no one lives long enough to pass on their new knowledge. Whoops! Click here to roll back the world server to a previous save state.
Oh my god, what? How was I supposed to know there was going to be like katabatic wind? Okay.
So you walked over to it's now taken us back to the few things the cavemen do have might be worth a closer look. And you had an option to walk over to the plants or step up to the fire.
Right, we're going to
Remember
walk to
what
the
you
plants
did.
and I'm going to point at the hill. We're going to do the opposite.
Okay. We're going to point at the distant hills.
I'm not going to get salty about this, I promise, Cameron.
Simon directs the group's attention to the hills in the distance. Beginning a masterful oration, Simon uses his atmospheric genius to explain why the hills would make a far better home than the mountainside. Okay, Simon, go ahead.
Zug, up high, see far. Why use many word when few word do trick?
Though a little underwhelmed by Simon's ramblings, the men agree to pack up and move their families up to the hills. Simon and Dan are returned to the server room as they watch as the cavemen develop farming, husbandry, and tool-making in record time. Could it really be that you've succeeded?
No, calling it now.
Well done, says Mr. Cook. You've deleted Machu Picchu from history.
Yay!
But I can hardly argue with the results. It seems that the hilly terrain was far more capable of supporting large populations than the terraces that would have eventually been constructed at Machu Picchu. Smothers, report this new information to the operators overseeing our River Valley simulations. It will do wonders for our agricultural studies. Hang on a second, said Simon to the CEO, cocking his head in disbelief. Dr. Clark, shouts Smothers, prying the doctor's hands away from his boss's neck. It's quite all right.
What?
It's quite all right, Mr. Smothers, says Tim, uncocking his head where Simon had cocked it. As far as comedic misinterpretations go, that one could have been far, far worse. I'm very, very sorry, sir, says a genuine Simon. I'm just surprised that any of this is new knowledge. Sorry, you're not American.
I'm not American.
I'm
No.
not surprised. I'm just surprised that any of this is new knowledge. Could you have asked any atmospheric physicist about your farming issues? Or any farmer, even? I try not to associate with those unwashed muckrackers, Mr. Cook replies, and farmers aren't much better. But at least they don't bother me about their carbon emissions. Now, while you were gone, we managed to get a large number of your friends and acquaintances on standby for teleportation. From now on, you may summon them to your aid at will. Let us begin with your second trial. He clicks another window on the computer screen. This one's for you, Dan. I hope you know your cathedrals, because world number 2 is based on the book that's all about them. A shame, too. We've just spent an hour discussing the weather, and now we get to go to church. Well, that's the Wikicast for you. Good luck, gentlemen. End of chapter 2.
Oh my
Amazing.
God.
That was amazing.
Cameron.
I loved that.
Oh my god. Like, this is I got the impression that it was going to be like one of those, you know, when Game Grumps played that golfing game and it was like no matter what you did, you wouldn't get the ball in the hole. I felt like it was going to be like that. Like,
yeah.
Oh, you send them up on the hill, they're going to freeze to death. You go to the fire, you burn in the fire. Like, you have to exhaust all the options before you're allowed to go forward.
Yeah.
Wow. That was quite
That was
something,
great.
Cameron. Thank you
Well done,
very
Cameron.
much.
I'm excited about chapter 3.
Goodness, Dan, though, we've been going on for so long. We need to
We
wrap this up.
have. So, Simon, what have we learnt today?
Well, Dan, today we have learned about Tenma Shubuya, a Japanese actor, classical dancer, and cultural exchange activist who we promptly ignored and then started talking about liquors of the world.
We did, and we spoke about Liquors of the World for far too long.
Yeah.
Which set the rambling train careering into the sidings.
This
for
may
this
be the
podcast.
longest Wikicast we've ever released, but considering that
it may well be.
it contained both the discovery of Honeycomb and some fantastic choose your own adventure action. I feel like the readers will forgive us for this one.
And a power cut and some poetry and an interesting review of The Lighthouse.
And
I mean, it's just been a
nature
it's been
of art
jam-packed.
and the artist. Yeah, this has been I feel like this has been more in line with what we expected to make. So, dear readers, I
Yes.
hope that this has sated your appetite for non-content.
That's all for this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice. Join the Discord, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our YouTube channel, Spongy and Electric.
Your local national liquors, your favourite bits of bad poetry. I still want to see some bad poetry. Please send it in. And other thoughts on the show can be sent to us at spongyelectric@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole,
And we'll see you next time.